Evening, everybody. Well, I would say it seems a long time, but then again, part of me thinks it hasn't been that long since we had a meeting, but obviously it has been quite some time. So good to see everybody again. And I'm Richard. Oh, there we go. There's Trevor. Brilliant. Perfect timing. So we'll make a start. So Rich, have we got anything on public question time? Anybody? Do you know who's
public present? No.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll move on.
Other than Councillor Blacker, of course. Sorry.
Of course. Yeah. Hi, Mary. Welcome. So move on to item 51, which is Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, amended by the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014 on the 6th of August 2014. And this refers to council meetings can now be recorded. And as I think we're all aware, this meeting is being recorded by the officer for viewing on the Home Valley Parish Council YouTube channel. So clearly it'll be there for anybody to review afterwards, and point members of the public to the link if they want to see the discussions that's taking place. Okay, so move on to item 52. Any apologies, Rich, that you're aware of?
No.
Good. So item 53, any members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests on items on the agenda. Anything that anybody wants to declare? No? Okay, good. And any written requests for new DPI dispensations? Anything?
No.
Item 54?
No.
Okay. Do we ever get any of those? I can't remember in my entire time on the council that we've ever had one. Oh, okay. Didn't think so. Maybe one day we will. Item 55, just consider whether items on the agenda should be discussed in private session. I'm certainly not aware of any, but if there's any views on any of the discussions. No. Good. Okay. So then that moves us to item 56. Which is to confirm the minutes of the previous meetings. And this meeting was held on the 16th of December, 2020, and numbered 2021-43 to 2021-50 inclusive. I don't know if we've got anybody who would propose those minutes as being true and accurate. Thank you, Councillor Hogley. Seconder? Oh. Have we got a seconder? I can second it, but I was up there. Thank you, Councillor Gould. So those have been passed. Rich, there were no, when I looked through, there wasn't anything that we needed to pick up, did we, at this point from the minutes? Everything's included in the agenda, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Yep. Okay. That's great. So that brings us on to the first substantive issue, really, apart from the minutes, obviously. Item 57. I think as probably most of you, if not all of you, are aware, unfortunately, Councillor Glyn Barker has resigned from the parish council. But I think he's communicated to people, both him and Bernie have decided that they are going to be going, once restrictions have been eased, they will be travelling, not first in this country, then I think their intention is across the rest of Europe, if possible. So unfortunately, we've lost Councillor Barker, and we now, and as he was the vice chair, we need to consider appointing a new vice chair. I guess we have two options on this. Very simple. We can do that at this meeting, obviously, or we can wait until after the election in May, where we would certainly have two new councillors join in. We would hope, anyway, two new councillors join in the parish council, and there may well be somebody who's interested in coming on the committee then. I have, as a chair, I've not got a strong view on this, but it's it really is up to the meeting. So, sorry, Rich.
Well, I was just going to say it's the annual meeting of council in next week, isn't it? So. Oh,
of course.
Next week.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
That's why I said we shouldn't really reappoint now, because we don't know who's going to be on the committee. So put it aside until after that meeting.
Yeah, I think that just emphasises what I just said, really. And I must admit, thank you, Rich. I'd forgotten it was the annual meeting next week. Any views from anyone? I think that makes perfect sense that we would do it not only after that, but after the May election as well. If I heard, yep, Councillor Hogley.
Yeah, I think we should wait until after May, because then
Yeah.
all the chairs and vice chairs of the committees will be set.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense, and it certainly doesn't have any issue or doesn't cause any problems with the proceedings tonight, or the work that's going to carry on in between. So, thank you. Okay, we'll defer that then, Rich. Item 58. This is the Climate Emergency Standing Committee expenditure against budget, and this is in the pack. It's item C. And this looks at the projected expenditure against budget report for the year. Rich has put this in, asking us to note. It includes the projected spending in March, which includes the Climate Emergency Coordinator salary and salary related expenditure. But it doesn't include, obviously, at this stage, any proposed expenditure that we'll come on to talk about later in the agenda. Are there any questions or any points that anybody would like to raise about the projected expenditure? As I say, this does not include anything that at the moment that we would agree this evening. No, you're doing it, Rich. You're doing far too good a job. You're obviously making things very clear for everyone. It's very simple. There's only a few items on there anyway. Okay, well, so meeting are happy to note that. Yeah, yep. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So that'll bring us on to item 59, which is the mobilization group. And just for people, just in case anybody's not aware, the mobilization group is the group that's was set up really, and the terms tells you what it is to really help create the momentum and continuity, if you like, in driving the plan going forward. It includes a whole range of areas, certainly very much the communication and marketing of what we do, but more than that, it very much includes the coordination of the overall projects through the Climate Emergency Coordinator. I'll give a little my thoughts at the moment, which I'll keep fairly brief, because really this section is much more about Michelle updating us on the work, not just the work that she's been doing, but obviously to relate to the work that's happening in the subgroups and what we're projecting going forward. Certainly from my perspective, as chair of the committee, I'm being given quite an easy ride, or a very easy ride, through a combination of Misha as a coordinator and some great work from the subgroups. And you know, we'll come to hear about those a little bit later on, but you know, it's very pleasing and I'm really encouraging to see that we're now starting to you know, really make some solid delivery on the ground. Was also very, certainly for me, is very helpful in terms of us being able to drive what we're doing in Home Valley, is I have a slight advantage, as people are aware, with my cabinet portfolio, in that I drive the climate change agenda for Kirklees. And even before I was on the cabinet, certainly the strategic director for climate change, Colin Parr, was extremely interested in what we're doing within Home Valley and within the parish council, and was very keen, as I say, before that, to establish a relationship with us and to look at how the work that we were doing, how that could fit into the overall plans with Kirklees going forward, and really to set an example or a model of what could happen in other parish councils and town councils. So one of the things, certainly out of that discussion, that myself and Colin are looking to develop with the roadmap for Kirklees. So after May, we'll be developing in far more detail the climate change roadmap, as I say, overall for Kirklees, which will have much more detail around how we can get the whole of Kirklees to net zero carbon by 2038. And one of the areas is the engagement with community and how we can establish a framework, particularly with parish councils and town councils on that. So we're very well placed, I think, from the work we've been doing to fit within that. And one of the ideas that Colin's come up with, which certainly I support, is to look at means of providing funds, not just to parish and town councils, but across community groups in Kirklees. None of this at the moment is policy. These are only ideas that we're proposing, and of course, whatever we put together would have to be agreed by the council and agreed by cabinet, and of course there would have to be funds available. But it's certainly something we're working on, with the idea that early next year or into next financial year, hopefully we'll be in a position to put something like that in place. So I think, you know, it's to the credit of everybody involved in this committee that already it started to influence Kirklees Council's thinking about how we engage across Kirklees itself. We're also in the process of setting up a climate commission for Kirklees, which will be up and running in May. There's an advisory panel at the moment, which is helping us to do that. And that may well be, again, another opportunity for parish and town councils to engage at a Kirklees wide place as well, rather than just in their own locality. So I suppose for me, my report is what we felt when we established the committee around partnering with Kirklees Council is really starting to come to fruition. We felt it was always a key element of what we wanted to do. In addition to the partnering and collaboration within the Valley. I'm really, you know, happy that I'm in a position where I can help to some degree, but really it isn't down to me. It's really down to the great work all of you have managed to achieve. And certainly, I think the fact that we have a new strategic director who has got a view which is very much in line with ourselves, that to achieve net zero, we have to, you know, certainly touch every part of Kirklees. We have to ensure that there's collaboration and partnership across private sector, public sector, voluntary sector, and that we really have to work hard to make this a very inclusive approach. So it just trying to, I guess, give you some context of where we are in Kirklees, how we fit in, and certainly I'd be very hopeful that at some point in the future there'll be some support in the sense of not just some element of funding, but I think more importantly, support in terms of how we link into resources, both at the council and in a wider sense across other groups within Kirklees. So really good news at the moment. Something else to mention for people as well, this week we're running a youth festival online, which is a climate change youth festival in Kirklees. And another indication of the strong partnership is that Michelle has been working, and she'll probably tell you a little bit more about this, has been working very closely with the team at Kirklees and helping them to establish that. And I know they've appreciated greatly some of the insights and some of the advice they've had from Michelle as well. So that's my report. I'm going to keep quiet and let Michelle do the important work of talking about what she's been doing and what the rest of you have been doing.
It's a bit tricky because I'm not going to steal the thunder of the other guys, because you've all got to do your reports about what you're doing. So I will gloss over things that are already listed in the agenda for more detail. It was quite interesting because I put together a summary of everything that we've done and didn't realise just how much we have done. So that's been really good. I'm going to go through the whole summary because I don't see any harm, especially as we've got new people on board in Mary listening in, that I'm going to go through all of the things that we have done up until now and also what we're thinking we're going to do. And as I said, the subgroups will go into more detail. So we did the quarterly event. Update on that is that the content that was produced from that is now being produced into mini videos that I'll be using for social media. I would have shown you one tonight, but we know how awful it is trying to play a video on these things. It just doesn't work. So I will send a link out as well, because today I just saw that Paul, Councillor Davis, has just identified that there's a couple of tweaks that need to be made on it. So I need to do that. The waste and resources. If you didn't know already, we've got the water bottle refill fountain installed. I've got it already lined up to get a story with a picture for Councillor Davis and Councillor Hobley, but of course, because of lockdown, we haven't been able to do that. So that's all lined up so that we'll get that in the Home Valley review, hopefully. And the repair cafe, that happened 2 sessions, and of course, lockdown has stopped that. So I don't know if Caroline's going to talk. Give me a thumbs up if you're going to talk any more detail about what you've been doing. You are excellent. I'll leave it then, because I know about some of the stuff that you've been doing as well. We are working not in isolation, and I'm hoping that Caroline will mention some of the partnerships she's working in other areas as well. And if not, I'll interject from that. So the land mapping, I'm going to leave Alison to talk about that. That's going, the details about that. And one of the things that's come out, we've got the HV CAP, the partnership, and that's enabled us to actually get grants to do things outside of our own budgets and stuff. So that's been a very effective partnership that's worked. But I'll let the other people that have got grants through that tell you about that. The energy audit, we've got a booklet being drafted which looks very nice, and Francis and Stephen are working on that. I'm having to rely a lot on their expertise, because I'm just making it look good and read well, but of course I don't understand half of the stuff that I'm reading about. I'm learning about it myself. So hopefully the next time we meet, we'll be able to show you that brochure. Just FYI, everything that we design now that could be printed in paper, we will not print. We are making it downloadable, but of course, there are a lot of people in the Home Valley that don't have access to printers. So the idea will be that if they request it, we will print it out of the council office on the recycled paper. But the whole point is we do not want to go back to a time where we're just printing lots of leaflets to hand to people for them to put in the bin. So even though we're designing it and calling it a brochure, we are thinking about it mostly being online. The energy audits, I'm going to leave Stephen to explain that as well, which is part of the energy part of it. Transport, lots happened in that as well. And Catherine and Matt will inform you about that. My role has been very much a coordinator of putting people with people, and I hope as a team that you've found that has been useful. So, for instance, Matthew approached me with an idea for a project, and it was like, well, you need to speak to this person, this person, this person, and also bringing in external people. So, for instance, the Home First Tech, and as Paul mentioned, yes, I've been working with the Youth Climate Team event that they're putting on. So what that highlighted to us, and we have talked about it, is a lot of the stuff we do and we had wasn't really applicable for a youth climate event. It's very aimed at middle-aged people. So, and it's very important for us to actually be aiming at everybody. And of course, the youth of today are the future of what's going to help us to achieve this carbon neutrality. So it's been very useful for me working with a lady called Michelle Sharps, she's heading up this event. And one of the things I did provide for her, Greta, I did realise we'd done this already, but was the quiz, so she could modify that for a youth. And I know that the one we did got edited to schools and stuff, but it's really good that I don't know how she's going to use it. But I've got a call with her tomorrow to get an update on everything that's going ahead. And I think this is happening on the 23rd and 24th, or 24th and 25th. Can't remember, it's one of those 2 dates anyway. So I'm going to be talking to her tomorrow for more details about that. I think this, for me, is one of the most important things that we're doing. We're seen as leading the head, but we're actually very far behind when it comes to the youth climate side of things. However, this is the way we overcome it. As we've been saying all along, we've got a partner with people that are already in that space and work together to make it happen. Website is being developed. I'll be sharing that with you when it's down, and that's going to be a major importance to all of us, because that's where we're going to be putting all of the information so we can signpost people there. So anything that we do or come up with, it's going to be the website that we can put things on. And we will be, of course, linking it back to the Home Valley Parish Council site so that people can switch over to us and vice versa. And it is branded as Home Valley Parish Council, as well as our subcommittee branding. And one of the things that we're looking at, we'll get onto that later, so I won't mention that now. The videos I've mentioned, social media, I have created a Twitter page and I've been updating that, and we've got a lot of Twitter is a much more easy thing to spread the word on, and we've actually got quite a lot of response and people started to follow us and interactions, which is really, really good. As I said, and I've said to you before, this is really important. I'm a one-man band, so if you ever see anything about climate emergency and think that'd be good for us to share, I know that Caroline's been doing some stuff which has been really helpful, and anyone else who is Facebook or Twitter savvy, please let me know so I can put you on as well as an administrator. And Sarah's been sending me stuff as well that I've been putting and sharing on there. So just throw lots and lots of stuff at me. And what I'm doing is, even though I only work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm scheduling stuff. So stuff is going out when I'm not around, because it, so that we look like we've got some momentum going. So please do help me as much as you can. If you see stuff, I'm trying to keep up to date with it, but some of the stuff I filter and think it's not relevant to us. So anything you can think of, let me know. Partnerships. I've mentioned the Home Valley Climate Action Partnership, which is really useful. River Home Connections, we know about, and Hot Edibles. So a lot of that is through John and Greta. I do actually need to have a chat with the two of you at some point so that we work together more effectively. I know there's things going on, but I think that I can be spreading the word through what we do a bit more effectively. But I get through the list. I'm back around to Hot now, I think. And yes, and personally, I have completed a 3-part course, which I shared with you, I know, on email, but just to talk a bit about it. And it was very interesting because it made me think about how we're trying to approach the greater mass of the Home Valley. And I think that as human beings, we think if you shame people, they'll do it. But actually what came out of it is you have to encourage and bring people and congratulate them on the little they do, because every little helps, as they say. And also, I'm going to be doing a carbon literacy training course, because I still, even though I've been doing this for a few months, I still find it hard to actually explain all of this in terms that people understand. And as a communications person, I feel it's really important that I can talk in the language that others understand. So this will help me to become carbon literate and actually start translating what does 210 tons of carbon emissions mean to the man on the street, kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing that I'll be doing. And just a little heads up about what's happening in the future. I'm looking at doing a competition to expand on our social media, where the prizes will all be climate emergency related. I think Kath will talk about the bikes idea, the electric bikes thing. Yes, will you mention that? Yeah. I'm going to be working much more closely with the Home Valley Climate HVCAP, because we don't have somebody in charge of the business partnerships at the moment. So it's really important that we have that, because, if we don't get the businesses involved, this is never going to happen. However, HVCAP are approaching businesses. So I'm going to be working with them to see how we can align with doing things to get the message out to them. One of the things Francis suggested, which we haven't got around to, but we will, is that we've got these in the parish council building, in the civic hall, and so we're going to actually send these to businesses, because we think that that's a really good audience and that's a good thing for them to receive and start thinking about on that higher level. So we're going to be sending that out. They stop blocking the entrance to the lift. And yeah, and then that's it. Yeah, that's all for me.
Thanks, Michelle. Any I was going to say, any questions, and Kath's beaten me to it already. Go on, Kath.
Well, I'd just like to say that from the other side of I don't know, whatever the divide is, just to say how useful it is to have Michelle in that post. That when I'm either looking at something, or we've been discussing something, or needing to know what's going on elsewhere, having that central person who's accessible is really valuable. So it's really just to support the post and Michelle who's in it. So thank you.
Well, thanks,
Kath.
Kath. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
There's some thumbs going up here,
Yeah, I
Michelle.
know.
Yeah, you're not only just saving my bacon and keeping things going, you're obviously hitting the right spot with other people, which is really good. Thanks.
Thank
Any other questions or anything, either to myself or Michelle, anybody wanted to raise before we move on? No? Okay, thanks. Okay, well, let's move on to item 60, which is to discuss a number of areas in which we need to authorize spend. So that links in very much to the work that the subgroups are doing, and some of the work that the mobilization group, particularly through Michelle, is doing. So the first item, and Michelle can add detail to this if we need to, but the first item is to consider an authorization to spend £300 from the mobilisation budget on publicity and prizes for an online competition to foster engagement with the public on green issues. So, Michelle, would you like to give a bit more detail on that for
Yeah, so
members?
we've set up these social media platforms, and if we're trying to get everybody in the Home Valley involved, it's one of the channels that I think we could reach out to. We do have to think about how we'll reach the youth groups, which I will talk to Michelle tomorrow about. But I thought at least if we try and build what we've got at the moment, we haven't got very many followers on Facebook or on Twitter. And one of the ways you do that is with competitions. And so it'll be a competition that educates, and then there's an opportunity to win things. And there's so many things out there that are relevant to the climate emergency that we could do, such as a bamboo lunchbox, or I've got these books about how to go plastic free and stuff like that. So I just thought it might not even be that much, because I haven't gone into detail, but I need to get, as I've learned, we have to get sign off in advance for things. Otherwise, when I want to do it, it's not there. So that money would be used to, number one, for the payment of prizes. And number two would be to do some Facebook advertising to sort of try and spread the message out into the Home Valley. And you can do it really targeted, so that it is just people of the Home Valley that are on Facebook that would see it. And then we'd also promote it on Twitter, but with the caveat of you've got to be in the Home Valley sort of thing. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, because that's quite a hard thing to manage, but that's the idea behind that money.
So this would be up to a maximum of 300.
Oh yeah, and
this is basically a provision that
yes.
that you can call off on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, Facebook advertising is nominal. It's just really not very expensive at all.
I know
so,
you can cover quite a significant area for about £40, can't you?
Yeah.
So it's not £40, £50.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments or issues anybody would like to raise on that? Or if not, would anybody be prepared to propose that payment? Yep. Oh, we've got two hands, so I'm going to take that as a proposer and seconder. So that's Councillor Hogley and Councillor Sheard. So if we could this is just members, obviously, and unfortunately, Mary, you can't vote, because you may well be a councillor, but you're not in this one. So if we could just take a vote of those in favour of authorisation to spend up to £300 from the mobilisation budget on publicity for the etc. for the online competition. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, sorry, Alison and Francis, you don't get the opportunity to vote, but it's good to have you just agreeing with things. But that's fine. But that's passed. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I should ask: is there anybody who wanted to vote against that? Have we missed anyone? Oh, Judith seems to have disappeared. Actually, she was the only other person. I was in favour as well. You can include me on that, Rich. Oh, Judith, we've lost Judith. Okay, all right, well, hopefully she'll rejoin. So the second item is to consider an authorisation to spend £500, again from the mobilisation budget. This is on publicity, and part of that would be pull up reusable banners for a FOS-free Friday, so a fossil fuel free day. Again, Michelle, could you...
This is an idea that's came about through email transaction between myself and Matt. So the idea being, we're trying to get people involved, and people do things, don't they? They do a this day or a that day or a vegan area or whatever. And we're going to try and do, because Matthew said it's really, really hard to do this for any length of time. So this was my alliteration, that people will try to not use anything that is around fossils for a day. So fossil fuel for a day. So it'll be not using your car, not burning wood, I'm assuming. I mean, maybe you want to say something on that, Matthew, because I'm not understanding what it's all about.
Go on. Oh, that's fine. Matthew, yep, go on.
You're unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, at the moment, there's not a particularly good word equivalent to vegan for being fossil fuel free. So FOS free is equivalent to vegan, fossil fuel free. If you do it per day, it means you don't put petrol in your car. You don't turn your gas boiler off if you want to be very hardcore. So you basically don't use fossil fuel for a day. It's very, very difficult to do. It makes you appreciate how hard it is to live without fossil fuels. We've done it for a couple of years, but it's hard.
I think sorry, I was just going to say it's a very interesting idea that you just said as well, Matthew, isn't it? That help people understand how difficult it is, because, you know, to turn your gas boiler off, you know, most people have got an electric immersion, I know, and depends. You could probably classify perhaps some of that electricity as being less of an issue, but it will demonstrate how difficult it is. So that's I'm not thought about it from that perspective yet, but definitely. Go on, Michelle, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, one of the things that Matthew said was that we should actually do it in sort of the summer months.
I was going to suggest that.
But still, we need to have the funds ready to do it. But yeah, so that's the idea from that. Again, I've put in an estimate. It might not be that much because it's all about word of mouth and maybe a bit of Facebook post advertising and stuff. And with that, we will get some interaction from other people doing it. So that will raise the profile of, like, I did it and what have you, you know, how people do it. And we'll think about how we maximize the output of that. But that, I think it's good because I've never heard of it before. So it'd be great for us to be seen to be doing something unusual.
Could part of this spend be if people say they've managed it, that they get some kind of I don't know, badge, certificate, whatever it is?
No.
That would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because you could do.
Come on now.
So you could you could do, you know, that would be something that relate back to the parish council as well. So,
yeah.
So we demonstrate.
Well, we could do something simple, like, which I want to do with the businesses when we get on board. You know, like Home Firth Events has those window things that you can put in your car or your on your window. So it could be just something like, I went FOS free Friday or something like that. So that brings the move, sort of the start of the movement. But we don't need to go into details. But that money is it's going to be around promoting the whole thing and getting everybody involved.
Okay. And Councillor Hogley. And then
yeah, I just want to say I think it's a really interesting idea, and I'm supportive of the principle of it. I guess the key is going to be giving people a kind of smorgasbord of things that what that actually means, because I think personally I'd slightly freak out at having to be completely in the dark, turn the heating off, and not be able to cook my tea. So I think we just need to sort of have options so people understand, so they don't feel like they're a complete failure.
Yeah, we would never
sat in the dark all day. So
yeah, it would be things like we would do a checklist so that you know that you're going to do that particular thing. You know, it's not, because I wouldn't have a clue. So
the first thing to say is, if you have a green electricity tariff, then you're fine. Electricity is fine.
Yeah.
I suppose it's about having options, isn't it, of things that are actually quite small things, and then there's and like not using your car for the day, but when it's talking about people suddenly having to turn all their heating off, people might be a bit ooh. So I think it's about to engage with as many people as possible. It's like little tiny steps you can make, and then obviously if you're hardcore, then you can go full out, like Matthew, obviously. I
think it's a very important point, and for those of us who are old enough, which includes me, to remember the blackouts in the 70s. Of course, it's not a problem whatsoever because we remember it well. sat in the dark with one candle or whatever. But no, I think you're right, Councillor Hogley. We'd have to, we could provide a whole range of different options and different things that people could do. So
Just to say again, with that, the budget, again, it's maximum of that. It might not be
Yeah,
required.
okay.
It was just, we had to put something in the budget for it.
John, you
can I
want
make
to
a
come in?
can I make a suggestion? Because just make a comment that it's been put to us in the past when this was been suggested that it's actually quite a negative thing. Telling people not to do things is actually doesn't always go down well. And there's a number of people, as I think Rachel has referred to, who may feel. One thing you can do is actually to turn it round a bit and actually put a positive into there, because one of the things you can do, for example, about not using your car is actually encourage people to use public transport. And some of the things where you can, if you give them a positive message of what you can do, some people will take that up. So it's having to sort of get the message across that by doing something like using public transport, you are avoiding, using fossil fuels, and trying to get that positivity over is a positive thing. And if that can be incorporated in the message as well, because I quite like the phrase "fos free." It's catchy. It's sort of it rings a few bells. But as I said, in the past, it's been put to us that it was actually a negative thing, that a lot of people didn't want to be told not to use the car.
No,
Yeah, John, bear in mind that training that I told you I did about making things positive and getting people involved. I will definitely be making it a positive message.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. So what we again, this is really putting a provision in for up to 500. It may not be that for this activity. Have I got somebody who would like to propose that? In terms of...
Can I just come in here, please?
Sorry, Judith, I didn't see you.
I keep flicking my hand up and down here. The thing is with this fossil fuel job, that if we're asking people to not use fossil fuels, and unfortunately there is no alternative for them to use, then there are going to be some elderly people who could possibly have problems heating their bodies actually, and cause more harm than good.
Oh, absolutely. This is not an issue of us telling people to close down and put themselves at any risk. Councillor Roberts, I totally agree, and I think that's why it would be certainly something we look at in the summer. Plus, as Matthew said, if you're on, we could help educate people in terms of some of the greener tariffs that they can go on in terms of electricity as well. So absolutely, it is not the case of us trying to say that we will be, well, obviously we can't impose, but we're not even going to try and come across that way. So totally agree with you, and we certainly shouldn't be making people feel guilty in any shape or form.
No, and I'm afraid that's what will happen, because some elderly people will get quite agitated about things like that.
Well, yeah, you're right. What we need to make sure is that when we communicate this, it is very clear, what we communicate and how we bring it across, and explain to people, that in no shape or form should they put themselves, their health at risk at all. And that's the last thing we'd want to do. So yeah,
where we live here, we haven't any alternatives. We have either fossil fuel or no fuel, so we haven't any alternative, and I don't propose to be sitting in freezing cold just to satisfy some, well, what can I say, whether it's a whim or not.
Well,
unless it's done 100% across Kirklees or across the valley, I can't honestly see what difference it's going to make.
Yeah, okay, that fair comment, and I think we take that on board, Councillor Roberts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So did I see somebody propose that? Yep, thank you, Councillor Hogley. Seconder? Yeah, I'll second it anyway. Oh, okay, if we could just take a vote, those in favour of putting in a provision for up to £500 for a FOS Free Friday campaign. So we've got two people in favour. Well, okay. Those against? Oh, three. Sorry,
Councillor Bellamy.
I missed you, Trevor. Sorry. Three. Yes. Any against? Oh, any abstentions? So
Roberts is against. I think.
against, sorry. You're on the bottom of my screen. Sorry, Councillor Roberts, I keep missing you. No abstentions? Sarah, are you abstaining, or Councillor Gould? No? Okay. There's three choices: for, against, abstain. Okay, fine. Okay, that moves us on to item 3. Considering authorization to spend, this one is spend £1,000 from the mobilisation budget on the website modifications. This is what Michelle was referring to earlier on, and this includes new graphic modifications, including a carbon calculator, which I'm sure Michelle will tell us a little bit more about. So Michelle, can I ask you to give a bit more detail on this?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a dream scenario bit, really. We are, it was Cather Halloran actually that came up with this idea. We're doing all of this stuff and we're saying we're trying to be more carbon neutral, but we are not in any way, shape or form depicting what our activities that we're doing are actually achieving in terms of us achieving this carbon neutrality. So one of the things that I've seen around a lot is these different carbon calculators. So Kath's idea was that, and again, to what you said before, Councillor Hogley, we will have a list of things that people can tick or on the site. So for instance, I took the bus today instead of driving my car, and my journey was 30 miles, etc., etc., that kind of stuff. They will tick it, and then what will happen is back office will do something and we'll have a running total of how much things people have done that actually show how much they have reduced their carbon emissions by doing whatever it is. It could be, the list could be, you know, we don't know the machinations of it. I've spoken to the website designer and he said it would be an add-on thing and it would cost a lot because it's a bespoke piece of programming, etc. And the thing is though, if we get it right, it could be something that we could sell to all the people and stuff like that if we did it well, you know, it's that kind of thing. But the idea being that anytime anyone goes to the website, they will see Home Valley community has reduced their carbon emissions by and then we could have a list of the activities and mapping the graphs and all sorts of things. So that's the idea behind that. It might be too soon to be thinking of something like that, but that was what I wanted to try and do, so that as we're having the website designed, I thought it'd be a great reason for people to come back to the website and it will actually show, I mean, we're doing all of this stuff, but there is no representation of what we're achieving by doing it. But equally, we want people in the community to be showing us what they're doing. So this was the idea behind that.
Just to bring people in now if they've got comments, but just something that occurs to me, Michelle, and I know we've talked about this before, but I hadn't mentioned this. I think this would be certainly, in my view, something that there'd be great benefit in working in partnership with the Kirklees team on this, because we'll be doing work with that, certainly on looking at carbon, how the carbon pathways are going to be measured going forward. So from that perspective, I think certainly it'd be very good to discuss that and share this, and I think the team would be very interested in this, actually, as to whether it would be something that they could input into as well, to make sure that whatever we're doing is in line with future measurements. Anyway, just a thought. And it's
actually, I think that's a really good idea. And to your point, Councillor Gould, yes, there are carbon calculators, but have you looked at them? Because honestly, they don't actually speak to the man on the street who said today I didn't fill my kettle up, whatever. What does that mean? But actually, I think that maybe we approach to do a project with Kirklees first before we go ahead and do it on our own on this one. But I wanted to bring it up, so I'm quite happy now you've had that suggestion.
Should we? I was just going to suggest that if we, I don't think this is immediate, is it, Michelle? I think this could wait for authorization to the, and I'll just put this to the meeting. If we defer this one, I'll raise this within the Kirklees team and see what work we're looking at doing, and therefore it may well be that again we could do this in collaboration, and that may make a difference in terms of the funding, but also in terms of how we approach this.
Okay.
Sorry, Michelle, it's just occurred to me when we were talking about this, and I just thought this is something. People, Councillor Bellamy? Yep, Trevor?
Thank you very much. Just one thing I wanted to bring in. This item mentions cycling and walking. In one of my roles is attending monthly meetings at Peak Park, virtually, of course, at the moment. And they have an employee to look after just those two items, cycleways and walking pathways, including the new philosophy of the slow pathways and what have you. So perhaps there could be some good advice, good contacts, whatever, as well as talking with Kirklees, perhaps talk to Peak Park as well.
That would be great. Could you provide the contacts to Michelle?
Yeah,
and
I can.
That would be fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. If people are comfortable with that, I think we can defer that for future meeting. As I say, it's not urgent. Yep. I see a lot nodding heads. Great stuff. Item 4, I believe, Michelle, is we when we review this, you believe that's a duplication?
It's not, but
it's
again,
not.
it's
My
not.
apologies.
We've got, it was all about branding and stuff, and again, this can be deferred because it basically, when we were doing what we've done with the brochure and stuff, we're creating little images, but the designers are having to create them all, and it costs us money each time rather than using stuff. Not because there's not stuff out there, but because it's with the branding, because we're trying to get this message across with this consistency across the whole thing. And so that was for that, but I'm quite happy to defer that as well, because I don't think that's needed right now.
That's not needed at this point,
No.
is it? So that's okay. Let's, because I don't really want to authorize something if we're a little way off that. So let's again, we'll defer that one.
Yeah.
The next one, 5 is more immediate. Well, saying more immediate, it's for discussion by the committee, and has to consider an authorization of a spend up to £500 adapting the water refill fountain that we've put in place in terms of having an addition to it, whereby instead of pressing the button that you can put the bottle and it will automatically activate the water so that you're not touching anything. It's not something that's absolutely essential. However, I can see, and I think Michelle can also see, some of the benefits of this, but it certainly be interesting to see what people's views are on this and whether we need to do it at this stage. Obviously, COVID, many people think COVID is disappearing, but COVID is going to be with us for some time. So it may well still be the case that people are reluctant to press buttons that are in a public space for some foreseeable time. So I can see the advantage of using this in terms of that, but open it up for discussion. Any thoughts?
Can I
Councillor
come in
Hogley?
there?
Oh yeah, wait, go on, Councillor Roberts, then Councillor Hogley. Go.
Can I come in there with
Yeah,
that?
sure.
That if it's one of these where you put your bottle underneath and it just automatically fills it, then if you put anything underneath it, it will automatically turn the water on, which could be an absolute waste of water.
It's actually, Councillor Roberts, you actually have to make a deliberate action. You have to put the bottle in it's seated into a mechanism. You have to push it down, so it isn't operated by some form of sort of sensor or anything. I think I'm right in that, Michelle. That's the way it operates.
It's actually, you have to put pressure on the plate with the bottle, and as soon as you let go, the water will stop running, and when you put the plate on again, it will carry on running.
Yeah.
So it'll never be able to run without anybody putting something under it.
Okay, Councillor Hogley. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of happy to go with general views on this, but my view is that the button on the front of the dispenser is actually, it's not like a recessed button that you have to press with a finger. You can push it with your elbow, you can push it with your shoulder if you want. So it's already offers, I think, the opportunity to push it without having to use your finger. I think if it was a recessed button, then I'd think that we should have this provision, but personally I'm not sure it really adds a lot, and my slight nervousness is it obviously has to be installed, and I'm just a bit nervous of the more working parts we have in it, the more likely we are potentially to have things going wrong. But if others are more supportive of it, I'm happy with that. But I don't think at the moment what we have precludes its use at the moment or in the future, because I think people have to take responsibility to wash their hands after they've pushed a door handle on a shop or whatever. And I actually think the button is quite an accessible one that you can push. You don't need to use your finger.
Yeah, and we certainly, as far as I'm aware, we've not had any feedback from the public that there is an issue. Michelle?
The only reason that I thought it was a thing was because other councils have actually put bags over them and stuff for COVID. However, I thought it was a legislation thing. I didn't realise that was just their choice. And to your point, Rachel, yes, I used it, and I just use my elbows and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, grown-ups have to know what they want to use and what they don't want to use. So the only other thing is, it wouldn't just be about COVID if you're talking hygiene. It's just hygiene in general if you don't have to touch things better. So that's another thing to think about.
I know we shared what we've done and the way it operates with the waste and recycling team in Kirklees, and certainly they didn't raise any objections to how it currently is set up. So as I said, I don't think this is a significant issue there. I'm certainly not aware of. I don't believe there's any legislation or anything in that regard. Councillor Hogley? Yep.
Sorry, can I just make a final comment? It's just I'd actually rather save that money and potentially look at whether we may want to put another fountain in somewhere else in the valley, Honley, for example.
I think that's a very good suggestion.
Yeah.
Councillor Roberts, did you want to come in?
No.
I think. Oh, hang on, Matthew. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. The advantage of a button is it's very obvious how to turn it on. So if it keeps it.
Yeah, that's actually that's pretty important. You don't need to even consider how to do it. It's there. I think we don't need to go to a vote on this. I think it's fairly clear. There's a consensus that we'll note that, but we'll not move forward on it. Okay, thanks. And that brings us to Kath, I think, to take us through item 6, which I think is again a really interesting and exciting little, it's not that small a development, something that we can show on the ground within the valley. So I'll let Kath really take us through this in terms of what you're proposing.
Okay, thanks, Paul. This is, members will remember that in order to support increased use of bikes as part of the active travel, one of the key things is you need somewhere to park your bike. If you're going to go shopping, you need, and those of you here who do that know, you need somewhere to be able to park your bike. So one of the first things to come up with active travel was, could we install some additional bike stands? And some money was provisionally allocated for that. Well, we've looked at sites and we've identified 7 sites in Holmfirth, 4 in Honley, and 1 in New Mill, and we're looking at mainly single hoops because of where they are and the space available. A single hoop, 1 or 2 sites, a double hoop, and then so I went out looking for who would be able to supply and install those for us and the costs involved. The only local company that I could get to quote for this was PA Welding, who are very local at Honley, and the other quotes are from national companies, and that I think explains the difference in the price. PA Welding would be my first choice anyway, because they do a lot of this work. So there's so they know what they're doing. So the status of this is we've identified the sites. We're waiting to hear. They've submitted them to the council. We're waiting to hear back from Highways about whether or not they're suitable. And if we go with PA Welding, we would be looking at 9 single ones and 2 doubles. So it's 13 hoops in effect. And that's the price they quoted us for to supply and install. It is possible that not all the sites we put forward will be acceptable to Highways, but we've got some backup sites. And then once this work is done, we would actually like to move out and start looking at other places where there is a reason, either shops or village places where people would want to travel to. They could travel by bike, and local people would like to have a cycle rack there. But it's surprising how long it takes to get all of these things done. So that's the next wave with this. Also, because we want the people who live in the areas to tell us where they want them, really. But there is a health and safety element to this. While we were doing this work, one site we went to is clearly a popular site for people to go to bicycle, and as a result, where cycles were tied up to really was not good for the bikes, and it wasn't good for the people who were trying to get into the shop either. So I think this is really important work for the council to be doing. Yeah, anything else you need me to say?
I'll open it up in a sec, Kath. Just a quick one from me. Well, first of all, huge difference between obviously the quotes there and you know, if you from my perspective, if we got a local company that's good quality, they can do this work, then yep, we should certainly look at them and take them on board. In terms of the sites, they stretch right across the valley, you said? So it's Honley, Holmfirth?
At the moment, Holmfirth, Honley and New Mill.
Right, so there's the three areas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Any other questions or anything that anybody wanted to comment?
Can I ask how much they were, actually? I missed that bit.
They
It went off.
Yeah, okay. So the quote that Kath is recommending is the lowest one, and that's PA Welding. So for the 13 single hoop bike stands, that would be 1,600. That's including VAT. And the other quotes are basically more than double that. The next one is Barriers Direct, which is 3,386, and Bike Dock Solutions, which is 4,000. And PA is a local company, and the other two are national.
And this is for the full 13 and not
Yes.
individual.
No,
Oh,
no,
right.
for the full, for the full, yeah. No,
Well,
no.
you know, the
No, it's worth
industry, they
asking.
want to never tell.
Councillor Bellamy first, then Councillor Sheard. You're on mute, Councillor Bellamy.
I am. Is it not now?
It is indeed. We can hear you now. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Again, PA Welding would be my obvious choice on looking at those three.
Yeah.
A couple of points to make. Whilst I've been for a lot of years involved with cycling and parking thereof, etc. With regard to the sites, obviously the council could well be restrictive as to using parcels of their land, which perhaps we can quite understand that when you're looking into that type of usage. With regard to single loops or double loops, what I would say is the critical bit on both of them, particularly on the single ones perhaps, is the space around them. Because a single loop might indicate somebody it's just for one bike. If there's space around it, you could perhaps chain 4 bikes to one loop. So it's sort of multiple use available on those. And so it doesn't, the idea of buying a thing with 4 loops on might be absolutely counterproductive. You may not ever use the 4 all at one time. That again, with regard to the Peak District connection, we're talking at the moment about creating routes across from our southern end, if you like, for Upper Holme Valley into the Peak District. There is a couple of ways around at the moment, but we're trying to expand on that and make it more attractive. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Councillor Sheard?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Kath, are they loops clustered together or are they dotted around near shops?
They're dotted around. What we did is, I'm saying we because it was with Marguerite Mulder, who is a keen cyclist and uses her bike for shopping. And we went round with the bike. And so we tried Again, because of Trevor's point about the importance that it isn't just, you don't want to just get one bike there. And it's very difficult to envisage space without something to give you an idea of actually how big is the bike. So what we did is we went round looking for where, if we were shopping here, would a cyclist want to leave the bike, particularly really on the basis of, is it in sight and not too far away, really. And so that's what we were looking for with sight. So we took the bike round and thought, if we were shopping here, where would we, looking round, where might be a place where we could have a Sheffield stand to attach the bike. And it does then depend on whether or not highways, because most of them are on pavements. And again, for the point Councillor Bellamy went, we may not get permission to put them there. It's in process at the moment. But we've tried to select sites that are both practical in terms of, if we have a cycle stand there, it's not going to be a hazard to all the other pavement users. And it's within easy distance and, if possible, decent sight lines from where you might be going.
I was just visualizing, like when you leave your dog outside a shop and they have a sort of loop to attach the dog lead to. I was visualizing something fixed to the wall, like a big loop that you can thread your lock through and leave it next to the wall so it's not interfering with the footpath.
I think the difficulty with that is, first of all, it may, in fact, well, I've been told it doesn't. I'm not a cyclist, so I have to take my advice from various cyclists who have contributed to this, is that it wouldn't meet the insurance requirements. It's ground fixed is needed for that. So that's the reason for that. And secondly, when you look at that, by the time the idea of the Sheffield stands with a tapping plate is that's really the sort of the standard for safest use, so that anybody who is particularly visually impaired people, you're not presenting a hazard on the pavement there. So the Sheffield stand with the tapping plate is the safest for that. Now, if it turns out that we can't get them in place, and that's the unknown at this stage, then we'll have to come back and look at it and see whether or not, if we look at other options. But by and large, the places, when we know they can go on into those places, then perhaps one of the things I should do is bring to this group where we're talking about them going, because we will want to make it public that, this is where you'll be able to park your bike.
Okay.
And it may be that if there are gaps, we can then look at alternatives.
Thanks. Okay. Councillor Hogley, finally. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's really useful having individual ones spread about rather than just big sort of central bike parking areas, given the scale of the towns that we're and villages we've got. I was just going to say one really simple thing. I think we should have some sort of sticker that goes on it once they're installed, that says where it's come from and what it's all about. So, with our zero carbon message and the fact, it's been through the parish council climate emergency. So I think that's important. I don't know if we've got currently plans to make stickers for concrete things. Obviously they're not concrete, but you know what I mean. Tangible things, but I think we should definitely make sure that they do have that.
Yeah,
absolutely agree. Yeah, I was going to raise the same point. Yep.
Just a quick question. I'm guessing, Catherine, when they're being created, can they not put a stamp in for it as part of the thing? So is that possible?
Well, I must say, I've been thinking, I thought we'd do this. And again, it just shows, you don't always think these things through, do you? I had assumed that we would have some sort of transfer that has, a plastic, mind you, but some sort of transfer to go on, because we want to put on a P and a bike sign to make it clear that it's parking for a bike, and these could all go on the tapping plate. That's the advantage of having them.
Sorry, Catherine, jumping in. I know. I was going to suggest, because of time this evening.
Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
Okay. I absolutely agree. I think if if you could pick that up to investigate with Michelle as well. I'm totally with I was going to raise the same point, and what we need is something that's not going to sort of disappear quickly and is not going to suddenly wear away as well. So it needs to be there. So I think we now need to just take the vote because we've got a number of items to go through. But fantastic work, Kath. Really, thanks for this. So there's a proposal on the quote for PA Welding, which, as I say, is £1,600 for the full 13 single hoop bike stands. Obviously, there's still planning permissions that are being worked through. But again, this is a provision that we can put in place so that once we have those permissions, then obviously Michelle can proceed with this. So can I see a proposer for that? Oh, thank you, Councillor Hogley. Seconder. Yep, we've got that. So all those in favour? Yeah, 4 there, I think. Yep, and Darrell, that's 5. Any against or abstentions? No. Okay. All right, that's great. Thanks. Thanks, Kath, again. And
ask the question, Councillor Davis.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Do we want to put this to council tomorrow for payment? Obviously, we're approaching the end of the financial year. If I add it to the agenda for council for next week, it means we can pay for it within this financial year. Is that viable?
When does your financial year end?
It ends on the 31st of March.
So does that mean we would have to have invoiced them by the 31st of March?
They would invoice us.
That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah, they would.
It's a bit tricky, is that? Because you've got to get planning permission for it first.
You won't get information from Highways, and it will take them a good few weeks to install. There's only 2 weeks to the end of March.
Yeah, you're struggling when you.
Okay.
So are we okay to defer that to the council meeting after that then, Rich? That
yeah, of course.
A problem.
I was just trying to save some money basically, because if it comes out of this year's budget, it comes out of this year's budget, and if we can't do it this financial year, it won't. It was as simple as that.
Okay. Yeah. Can we earmark it?
Not really.
No. Okay. Fine. We can't. Good try. Michelle?
I was just saying that Councillor Gould had said, I didn't understand what he meant by the question, but he put something in the chat, so that's what I was flagging.
Oh, sorry, I haven't seen the chat.
Yeah. He said,
provisionally
apply for cash. I don't know what that means.
Well, I think that's what we, that's what we're doing now. Councillor Gould is certainly approving it provisionally in terms of it being a provision, but obviously in terms of spend, we can't spend it until we're invoiced, and it looks like we're going to struggle to do that this year. So I can't see any way around that really.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's not it shouldn't be an issue for the budget going forward anyway. Okay. Thanks everyone. That brings us on to the subgroups, and we're a little bit behind, but not that far behind. But so if I could ask the energy, housing and buildings group, so that's Steve and Francis, just feedback. So Steve, I don't know if you wanted to go first.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I mean, as you highlighted, the energy working group is myself and Francis. To be honest, neither of us is overly blessed with excess spare time at the moment with our challenging day jobs, but that just made it all the more important that we concentrated on the top 2 priorities that we agreed previously in the original action plan, namely the energy audits that we talked about for the Civic Centre and also for Honley Library. So after a bit of a tortuous process around approvals and the process to sort that out, we're pretty much there now. I've been liaising with John, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow, John, so we can perhaps sort out the solution for the purchase order. I think we're good to go on that now. In terms of timelines, we're probably looking at actually doing the audit work now. We're going to struggle to get it done before the end of April, early May, something like that. And I mean, just to remind everybody, this was to get a professional energy audit done for those buildings for two reasons. First of all, to help us with the roadmap around good practice in the Home Valley Parish Council buildings, but also to give us a good steer into a wider good practice that might be sort of best practice sharing across other similar facilities in the valley. So that's one of the things that we've been working on. The other thing that we've been working on is this, let's say, brochure, call it electronic brochure, around the hints and tips for homeowners to reduce their energy consumption. We've actually done quite a lot of work on this already. We're about 95% complete, I would say. We've drafted all the text. Michelle's done a fantastic job of pulling it all together and getting it looking into a decent document. I think myself, Michelle and Francis need probably one extra session to get together to hopefully finish that off, and then we won't be too far off finishing that. Francis has suggested some possibilities for that, Michelle, so we'll maybe catch up with you on that this week as well. So say we're fairly limited on time. If there were any additional resources that wanted to join the energy group, then they would be very welcome. And again, a lot of these things are also common amongst Kirklees and maybe other parties that we could work with. So, you know, collaboration is always good, but we'll focus on those two key topics, get those up and running, and then see where we go to the next actions in the action plan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Francis, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. Have we still got Francis? I don't think we have. Oh no, we haven't. Thanks, Steve. I know Michelle's shown me some of the work you've done on the brochure, and it is looking really good. I think I know Michelle's helped on that, so it does look really good. Councillor Hogley.
Yeah, certainly. Both things sound very good. So that's great. I just wanted to check, and I'm sure the answer is yes. You know about this, but the Civic Hall is planning a lot of refurbishment work, which they're just on the verge of appointing their contractor to redo all their toilets and do some work at the back and put in a fire escape. So I'm just conscious of obviously that work may just either make it more difficult or make it easier for you to do the audit on site. So I'm just not sure if you're aware of the kind of timescales of when they're going to be doing a lot of work on it. But obviously, some of the outputs could help them make sure that what they're doing is as energy efficient as possible as well.
I didn't know that was going on. Does anybody know what the timescales are for that then?
I can send you a little bit more detail about it, but the best people to talk to would be the Civic Hall Trust. So I can send you their details to ask them what the timescales are. But I think the intention is to, because I was in a tender meeting the other day, and all the people who were presenting themselves for tender said they could start in 4 to 5 weeks' time. So even if you allow another, let's say, 6 weeks' time, they may be starting work on site.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good to know.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hogley.
Can
Councillor
I
Roberts?
ask,
Yep.
Can I ask what provisions actually have they been made for after this audit to be able to put the provisions into a working practice? So what exactly have you done? You know, it's all right having an audit, but we've got to have something that at the end of it to show as to why we've done an audit, because we have to remember that it's an old building, and old buildings have a lot of problems, like the library will and the Civic Hall, which are both older buildings, and a lot of them are in Home Perth as well. Therefore, you know, to create an audit, what is your intention after finishing this audit to do? What are your aspirations of what you want to do? Because
well, I mean, Yeah, the audit will respect the nature of the buildings that we're faced with, Grade 2 listed buildings and so on. And the idea around the audits is to provide some very practical ideas, both in terms of short, medium, and long-term aspirations for energy efficiency and carbon reduction. I don't want to prejudge that until the audit's done, otherwise we shouldn't do the audits. But you know, the idea is that we get some practical ideas that help us on that roadmap to zero carbon by 2030.
And I just
I can't honestly see how that can happen when it's a listed building, because there are a lot of different constraints on a listed building as to what there are in an ordinary building.
Well, I think
yeah, the people that we're getting to do the audit.
Pardon?
I think though, just to jump in a second on that, I think it's a fair point you, Councillor, obviously raised, and obviously that's noted. But until we have the results of the audit, and then we can then evaluate those results and the proposed actions, we can then, obviously, you're right, that needs to then be looked at in light of a listed building, as Steve has said. The people who are doing the audit are experienced in working in such buildings as well. So it's a very relevant point. You're right. It's just we would have to look at that once we've got the results. Once we have the results, clearly as a committee and as a parish council, we would then have to discuss how we proceed. You know, whether that's through our own funding, whether it's seeking funding from elsewhere through government funds, or there may even be through government funds there may be something available at Kirklees. We don't know at this stage. So I think that's the way we would be proceeding. So certainly.
Can I just come back in there again, please? There's there's a lot of money going on to that, into this audit thing.
Yeah.
And if at the end of the day, after the audit, there's nothing we can do about it because of what type of building it is, it seems a waste of public funds.
Well, it's chicken and egg, isn't it? Until you do the audit, you don't really know what we need to be doing. So it's very difficult to judge that from the outset. I'm sure there will be actions that we can take, and there will be some form of limitations because of that. But at this stage, we just don't know. The only alternative would be to do nothing, and clearly to do nothing would not make sense at the moment. But it's a fair point that you raised, Councillor Roberts,
but to do you would be able to do something, but to have to spend X number of £1,000 on being able to be told that you can only do a certain item, because like they're talking about, I've heard that they're talking about putting solar panels on the Civic Hall. Well, that isn't going to happen.
So I don't know who's talking about anything, Councillor Roberts. We've not done the audit, so
no, I know you haven't done the audit.
So who's talking about? We don't know. I think we're trying to do a bit of crystal ball gazing without the thing. We've authorised the audit. We're comfortable with running it. So I think we best wait and see what the outcome of that is. So unless there's anything else, Steve, I was going to move on to transport because we are rapidly running out of time. So that's okay. Yep. All right. Let's move on to transport, please. And that's Matthew and Kath. I think Kath's already talked a fair amount about cycling, but I think there's other things probably you want to pick up. So I don't know which one of you would like to go first.
Should I kick off, Matthew?
Yeah, sure.
That's okay. Maybe what I could do, because Greta's here as well, and she's also a member of the Transport Working Group. Perhaps if just run through things, and then if there are any questions, or if Matthew and Greta want to, because I'm aware we've already taken up quite a bit of time with transport, so I shall try and be brief. As it says on the agenda, we've got 3 areas of work. We have promoting public transport that we're not doing anything with at the moment, because that's really post-pandemic. Electric vehicle infrastructure and the active transport agenda. In terms of the electric vehicle infrastructure, we had a very useful meeting with Kirklees, Matthew and myself, Paul and Sean Berry. And I think the outcome from that was that we indicated we're keen to be a pilot site for any work Kirklees is doing about getting in place curbside charging. And we've agreed that we'll wait to see the outcome of their strategy work to see how well it meets our needs. But I think it is worth flagging up at this stage that they may not be being as ambitious as we want to be in the Home Valley, or they may be constrained in a way that we won't be, so that we may well want to carry on and do the sort of work that we discussed at the earlier meeting anyway. It's also to recognise that that actually that there is a view that we want to be trying to decrease the number of cars on the road, but we're particularly keen to make sure that where with the move to electric vehicles, which is the way the government's going, we don't want the residents in the Home Valley who don't have off-road parking to be disadvantaged in being able to use EVs. So that's the balance. In terms of active transport, I've spoken about the bike stands already. The bid to the Bright Green Community Trust was successful, and therefore we'll be running in the summer at a point to be determined our campaign to encourage people to not to use their cars for all their short journeys. So the tagline will be, if it's not far, leave the car. And this is all the sorts of things that Michelle's talked about. This is gentle nudging. It's not saying you can't use your car. It's just asking people to think, could they, if it was a short journey they've just made, could they do that by some other means? And so that's a project that's in partnership with Home First WI, and we'll be beginning to work that up anytime soon. The other area of work is Greta has been in touch with the Duke of Edinburgh scheme organiser at the high school around involving the pupils who are interested in doing Duke of Edinburgh Awards to do something around the environment and active transport as part of that. Early days, but they're very definitely interested in this. So Greta will be working with them to develop really what that might look like. So again, that's helping with Michelle's wanting to engage with the youth. So they're the things that we've got actually going on at the moment. And then the other thing I wanted to two things I just wanted to mention, which is to flag up with things that are we're moving towards. One is we've identified a social enterprise who works with primary schools around encouraging walking to school. They run a walk to school challenge. And we felt it's not the time at the moment to be approaching head teachers about this. But as soon as either the pandemic settles a little bit or schools are able to get back to a bit more normal, we will be approaching them. We would certainly like, and we think it would be very, again, good publicity and a good message for the parish council to perhaps help the schools by covering the cost of that initiative, just for the first year. After that, they need to work out the funding themselves, but in order to encourage them to be involved. And in terms of the cost for that, if we look, it's based on a per capita cost per student, per pupil per year. And there are, roughly speaking, 2,000 children from reception to year 6 in Home Valley schools. So if half the schools decided to get involved and a third of the pupils decided to take the challenge, that'd be at a cost of around £700. Obviously, when we get nearer to that, I'll bring more details, but I just wanted to flag that up. The second initiative that is in early planning stages, that again, I think the parish council will hopefully want to be involved with and will be seen as supporting, is the use of cargo bikes for zero carbon delivery. EPICS, which is Environmental Projects in Kirklees, I think, is looking at developing a zero carbon delivery service based on the scheme that's already operating in Hebden Bridge, and they'd like to pilot that in the Home Valley as a pilot, and it will need working up, obviously, and they will need to secure funding. And one of the ways that we could get maximum, both publicity is the wrong word, but to just bring to people's attention the fact that the parish council is active in this, would be to actually contribute to the costs of that pilot. And probably the clearest way to do that would be to cover the costs of a cargo bike. Now, that's obviously a significant investment, running to about 6k probably. It's not the full cost of the pilot, it would be a contribution. But again, it's flagging up that if we want to reduce, we all know that during COVID, buying online and deliveries have skyrocketed. And with that, the number of delivery vans, many of which are petrol and diesel, have also increased. We know there's interest from some of the shops, and there's also interest from other providers in this. And so it's an opportunity that's probably round about May, a business plan should be coming forward. We would hope.
Okay. Thanks, Kath. That I think some really interesting. I'm aware, as you know, of the cargo bike pilot, which I think is a really exciting initiative. But also, you know, I really like the idea of this, of working with a group to help the schools in terms of the walk into school. I think that is, you know, also something that we've talked about a lot, and I've never really had a view about how we would do that. So thanks. Greta or Matthew, I don't know if you wanted to add anything at all. Has Kath covered the key areas? Yep, she's done the job. Excellent. This is what we like. And any questions, Trevor?
Yes, if I can just put one thing into the pot, please. I'm just wondering if Catherine and a colleague have looked at the Hinchcliffe Mill school train, if you like. How the kiddies get to Hinchcliffe Mill School on unpaved roads, because that's basically what they have available to them. There isn't a pavement in any of the access roads that go to that school. What they do is pick up a group of children each morning, maybe on by the old Bridge Public House, or even further up the road, and a couple of parents on a voluntary basis walk all those children to school, and a similar thing to get them home.
Yeah.
And they've done that for a lot of years, and to be honest, I'm not aware of any accidents having taken place as a result of that initiative. So
thank you.
If you haven't seen that, it's genuinely worth a look at. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent. Thanks, Trevor. Councillor Hogley. Yep.
Sorry, I've just got a very quick simpleton question. Is a cargo bike powered by someone's legs, or is it an electric one as well?
It's an electric
cargo.
It's an electric one.
Yeah, it's they are specialist bikes designed. So yeah, it's legs and electricity. It's a mixture. So yeah, okay. Well, we move on to waste. John, if and obviously Caroline, what would you like to pick up in terms of your group? Who was on to start? Who's getting it first?
I think we're a bit sort of a quiet time at the moment, with really waiting for see the way COVID is going. I think one of the things we'd like to probably look at is involving in sort of community hub recycling center. We're probably using the tech if we can get them engaged once it reopens, and really picking up from where Fair Trader have been going in terms of a community recycling hub. I think also we're waiting to hear a little bit more about the council waste strategy from the consultation last year as to where that might be going, and what is happening there. I think that might certainly give us some incentives or some further ideas about what might be happening within the valley and in Kirklees in general on the recycling side. I haven't heard anything more about when there's likely to sort of firm up on that. You might know something, Paul, in terms of the timing on that.
Yeah, it's I know they're working hard to pull this together. Certainly the consultation has been complete, and I've seen a briefing and a summary on that, which they're pulling together for you know, public consumption, if you like, and you know, we're very, very pleased with the response. It's been, you know, a significant response for, you know, such an exercise, you know, quite significant in that regard. But I won't go into any numbers or anything because that it's not been released yet as such. So that's done. We've also run a number of internal workshops, which I've been involved with on the waste strategy. And certainly I'm aware that sort of post-election, June time, there's going to be something coming back for further discussion at Cabinet, but I'm not sure, you know, of exact timetable after that in terms of, you know, when we would have something together, but it is progressing, you know, pretty rapidly. So I think we as a Cabinet would be looking at more detail around the strategy sort of early summer. That's what I'm aware of at the moment. But a really, you'll hear about the consultation exercise before then, and a really good response right across Kirklees.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose if I can just ask Carolyn to pick up on where we are on the recycling, on the repair cafe, I should say.
Yeah, so we've only managed to have 2 sessions, and unfortunately the second one we really didn't have anybody turn up because we were just not able to give people any notice due to, you know, government regulations and so on. But we've got 3 good fixers on hardware: Roy Biggs, Martin Falsey, and my other half Nick, who between them can fix most things, and I'm doing sort of textile things. And we hope to be operating again on, I think it's May the 1st, the first Saturday of each month. Additionally, well, we've done a few fixes as well for people at home. Latest has been another pressure washer for somebody we know, but you know, people are desperate. We'll always try and help them out, even if they can't get it to us. We could you know, do a Zoom or, you know, Facebook Live or what have you to help them. Additionally, I don't know if people are aware, but somebody's set up a really brilliant Facebook group for the Home Valley called Home Firth Free Cycle. They've got 2,900 members, and it's brilliant, I suppose, because charity shops are closed. So people are actually sharing a lot of or offering things for free, lots of children's stuff, school uniforms, toys, all sorts. Even I've acquired 3 great old doors that I'm really happy with. So and on Wednesdays and Sundays, people can actually post requests for things. So that's clearly stopping a lot of stuff from going into landfill. I know John has spoken to Julia Roebuck, who has her own sort of consultancy, Upcycle Fashion, but she's also doing some stuff with schools and charity shop garments, getting children involved in like upcycling stuff, which is, you know, a great idea. And then I think she's hoping that she will be able to run the next swap shop, so on the 22nd of May, which is a really good way of people swishing taking some of their old clothes that are in good condition that they just don't really like or they don't fit anymore, and swapping them with other people's stuff, which is a really, you know, great way of keeping stuff out of landfill. That's it.
Excellent. Really. Thanks very much. And this whole idea of you know, what we call the circular economy, isn't it, of reuse? I can tell you, as you know, is one of the areas we've been looking at within Kirklees, within the strategy, and you know, I'm very optimistic that we'll see something coming through in the waste strategy going forward on that. So yeah, Caroline, go on.
Yeah, could I just say on that, I noticed that down in the Cotswolds, well, actually I think it's Warwickshire Council, but it's just on the edge of the Cotswolds, they actually have a little shop at their recycling centre where, you know, decent stuff is, you know, pulled to one side, because, you know, some people's rubbish is another person's treasure. And I really think there's so much interest in this, you know, with things like the repair shop and, you know, all these other programs that you see, that I think it's something that Kirklees should be, you know, trying to do.
Absolutely, and you won't be surprised to hear that's one of the things that's being looked at. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but it's definitely one of the options, along with a few other ideas around the sort of circular economy and reuse agenda. So yeah, this is certainly in the mix at the moment, definitely. Thank you. Unless there's anything specific, I was going to move on to Alison. No. Okay, Alison, if you could update us on the audit that you're running at the moment.
Okay. Well, in the last few months, been doing a lot of communicating with various interested parties about this mapping project. So the mapping project itself is going ahead. We were successful to get the Bright Green Community Trust matching funding for the parish council funding, which is nice. The mapping project itself, I'll let Andrew describe how it's taking shape now, because it's nearly ready for off. I've been talking to Rob Dolby as well, who's the Green Space Officer for Kirklees, who is joining us on this project as well, which is quite nice. And I'd also talked to a man called Matt Taylor, who's part of the South Pennine Facilitation Group, which brings farmers together to encourage joined up thinking about stuff. And he's been giving me some tips about the way that he started his project. And he's really very interested as well to see how we manage that coordination when we've done the pilot study, really, which is what Andrew will describe. So it's chugging along nicely. We've got people in the university engaged, the actual mapping from the geography department, but a food policy expert as well in the university, and they're all quite keen being. So yeah, it's going well. But I'll let Andrew describe the actual physical project that is the pilot study of the pilot study.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Andrew. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's quite difficult to explain it because I'm not really doing the mapping. That's Gideon who's doing the mapping. He has tried explaining it to me, and he has shown what he's done so far. So he's pulling information from different mapping areas and coordinating them all into one, really. He explains it by layering it up, so different kind of information for different land uses will be available for us all to see. Because I've been struggling to understand what he's doing, we've decided to do a pilot, which will also help highlight any issues we might have contacting landowners and also make it a little bit more relevant. So we are going to do a little pilot around our own farm, incorporating some of the neighbours, if we can, with different landowners and different people using the land. So some of it's rented, and also different land uses within that area. They've also got somebody who can help mapping the area with drones to produce some images, and they also have an app on a phone which can help for measuring and describing the likes of hedgerows and walls. So that'll be a case of somebody getting out there, and we're hoping to get some of the youngsters involved with that. So that's where we are with that, really. We haven't really got started with it. I'm just waiting for Gideon to send me some maps, and then I'll approach some of the landowners and we'll make a start on that and see what comes of it.
Okay, that sounds a good idea to run a pilot. I know Rob Dolby, as he mentions, is joining in and being involved, because from a green space, from a Kirklees perspective, Rob wants to do something similar across Kirklees. So he's really keen to see how this proceeds, so that, you know, we can pick up the approach and any lessons, and obviously any sort of collaboration going forward. So I think that's also exciting. Alison, you wanted to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, the app is something that people can use to map the ground, and that's something that the university are quite interested in. So the geography department have got students who can help with that as well. It's taking a while to coordinate the whole thing, but as Andrew was saying, you've got an area of land, like a big square, which has 5 or 6 different landowners on it, and different kinds of landscape. So it will be the model for going bigger. The thing that slows it down at the moment is that Gideon has got to put in the data and work out how you store the data.
Oh, are you all right? Go on, Alison, go on.
Yeah, so although there isn't anything, Andrew said, haven't really started on his land. They have started. They've been working for actually getting the I don't know what the strange noise is. What's going on?
I think you're breaking up, but go carry on.
All right. So the work is going ahead to actually set up the parameters for this, which is actually quite painstaking and quite laborious. But I think we've got a Zoom meeting in a week, and I think we're nearly ready to go now.
Okay, that's excellent news. Okay, and anything anybody wanted to raise on that? Well, great. Thanks everybody. Thanks everyone in the subgroup. I really appreciate the efforts going in. I know it's definitely been tough. Oh, go on, Councillor Roberts. Yeah, go on.
Can I ask you a question? This mapping of the land, what will it? What will the outcome of it be? What do you want to do with the mapping of the land?
The mapping of the land should eventually, it will produce a landowner's atlas to have a coordinated strategy for where land use might change, where things can be improved. It's actually the recipe for where you would do tree planting or wetland management or all different things like that. But more importantly, it's about having a strategy which joins up across different landowners or different land users. That's the aim of the project.
But that surely is already on file belonging to the NFU.
No, it's not. No, it's not, I'm afraid. No, I mean, this is one of the big problems, that ownership and use of land is very difficult to measure. And that's why people are quite excited by this project that we're starting, with Andrew's Farm, because there isn't anything around here. There isn't.
That tells you what?
What tells you, as what Alison said, that there just isn't that, if you like, integrated, joined up picture across the valley, not just in this valley, but across. I'm saying Kirklees, but I think this is a common issue, right across many other areas.
It's a national issue, actually, and there are some very good examples of people who are a little bit ahead of us, like the Brecklands in Norfolk, where they've got 40 farmers working together now. They've got an environmental strategy because they've got 40 farmers working together. They're doing the same thing in Cumbria. So there are people working where the communities have joined together. In Cumbria, it's actually some villages that have joined together, but they've got the strategy for improving the landscape. And that's what we're aiming to do here.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're going to be altering the landscape of the land, are you?
Not necessarily, no.
Ah.
Okay. Thank you. Right. I think we need to move on to the item that Councillor Sheard's raised. But before we do that, just finish off by saying, again, thanks to each of the groups. We've seen some really great progress. And again, look forward to report backs in the next meeting. Please, and I know Michelle is really helping on this. If there are issues, I don't believe there are any, because I think we covered them now in terms of funding going forward, then obviously we just need to raise them in a proactive sense. But I think we're in very good shape at the moment, so that's great stuff. All right, so item 62, this was an item you wanted to raise, Councillor Sheard, on provision of allotments.
Apparently there are 108 people in the Home Valley requesting to have an allotment. And it turns out that the parish council actually have more power than Kirklees Council on this matter. So really I'm requesting that the committee vote for the parish council to acquire some land somewhere, maybe for allotments on a long-term rental basis. I presume we'd have to look into that.
I was going to say, certainly I'm not expert enough in terms of us acquiring the land or what land is available. I certainly would be very supportive of investigating this. I'd like to hear other people's opinions. I don't see any issue at all investigating that, but is there any other thoughts from any other members? Councillor Hogley?
I know Councillor Sheard's certainly right that one of the powers of a parish council is to manage allotments. So I can see why Kirklees may push, may encourage us in that direction. I guess I'm not averse to the whole principle of looking at it. I know it was probably about 5 years ago or something, we did a sort of local investigation to see whether there was a demand for allotments, but the world has changed a lot in 5 years, and particularly with lockdown and more people wanting to grow things locally and more awareness of, well, indeed, why this committee is here. I'm certainly supportive of the principle, but I think in practice it needs quite a lot of consideration of where would be appropriate places, the associated costs that would be involved with that, and the management of it, because obviously we've currently got the allotments in Home Village, but my understanding is all the other allotments in the valley are all managed by Kirklees. So there's ones sorry, by various groups, because I think there's one in Wooldale that's managed by a local group. So I don't profess to know anything about allotments, to be honest, but I would suggest that perhaps it's something that Councillor Sheard could work with others in this group, perhaps, who've got more knowledge of allotments and potential opportunities to explore the land. And I'm sure the Deputy Clerk could find out about the powers that are available to the Parish Council and how they would be utilised should a location be found.
Thanks. Darrell, you put your hand up. Oh, you're on mute. The famous phrase, you're on mute.
Hold on.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I think we should be a lot more encouraging of this initiative. It's quite an important issue. People wanting to grow their own stuff and protect the environment and all that kind of stuff. If you have an allotment, you're not going to use the fertiliser you don't want to use. So yeah, I think it's worth putting extra effort in.
Yeah, I think I'd certainly agree, that we should investigate. It's, to put it bluntly, would somebody like to put their hand up to initiate that? Because it needs somebody to initiate it and working with us. Oh, Darrell, yeah. And Sarah, would you both like to pick that up?
I think it's an important issue. So I've raised it before with the clerk, who said everything was in Kirklees and we didn't have any powers to do anything, which I disagreed with at the time. And I think it needs maybe a bit of time just looking into whether it's expanding next to Kirklees sites or using, and even buying our own land. I think that the Parish Council should get involved in this sort of initiative.
I think there's I would say a consensus of around that, an agreement. I would also suggest, Alison, this links into your subgroup, doesn't it? So I would, my view would be is if Sarah and Darrell work with yourself on this.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think actually finding out where there's potential land could well fall into the mapping project as well. Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion as well? I think it should be widened out personally. Allotments traditionally have been personal things. You get a piece of land for yourself. I think there's an increasing trend towards a more communal approach, actually community sort of guards, community growing. So if there is an initiative there to look at land for growing, I think it should be widened out not only to individual allotments in the traditional sense, but also into finding plots, growing areas, which could be developed on a more community centered basis. I think that would be quite a positive and a more innovative approach than just looking at providing people with pieces of land that historically have actually gone into disrepute because people leave them and don't do anything with them and they go to waste. So I think a more community approach would be a more modern way of doing it, personally.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm quite frustrated about was because of COVID, just before lockdown, a year, not much, that I'd got a lot of visits lined up to go and see community allotments and whatnot, and of course nothing's happened, just to see how other authorities had done it or other community groups had done it. And it's something that I feel frustrated about, because I think there are some good models out there, perhaps to pick people's brains and see how they started. That's what I wanted to do.
Could we, because we're in danger of putting together the action plan already, could we take it then that there's agreement that both Sarah and Dara work with yourself, Alison, to progress this? Matthew, was this a quick one on this?
Yeah, just a very quick one. If anyone wants to go along to the New Mill Community Garden, which is operating Wednesday, 10 o'clock, any Wednesday at 10 o'clock, you'll meet a bunch of people who are doing it.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. That is a community garden there. So yeah. So
Yes, does anybody know of any land that's available to use as an allotment?
Well, I think the answer to that probably would be because Roberts no at this point, but that would be something that would have to be investigated along with what we think the right approach is. So I would leave that with Sarah, Darrell, and Alison to look at that and to see. It may well be, we said this on the land audit. There may well be some landowners who possibly would be prepared to allow their land to be used for these purposes as well. So we'll do that and investigate it. So I think that's a great suggestion. Thanks on that. I think the last item, and my apologies, we have overrun. Last item was to note that as a council, we resolved at the meeting on the 1st of February to support the climate and ecological emergency bill and to carry out the following actions, which were 1, to inform the local media of this decision, 2, to write to the local MP asking him to support the bill, and 3, to write to the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill Alliance expressing our support. So that, Rich, was just for noting. There's no action from that, is there? Okay. Perfect. My apologies. We've overrun by 15 minutes, but I think it was worthwhile. Excellent meeting. We continue to make progress despite the difficult times. Appreciate everybody's help. Good to see that, that we've got a new initiative that we've literally started this evening on allotments or communal gardens, whichever way we look at it, communal growing. So brilliant. Have a good evening, everyone, and talk to you all again soon. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.